Welcome back, everybody. It's another podcast with Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded. We're super excited to be back and sharing with you guys our thoughts and feelings. We've got a special guest for you guys today, and we're really excited to have her share some thoughts and feelings and some ideas. First, make sure that you're joining our Facebook page, our Facebook group. We've got some great conversations going on there. We got a lot of people that are participating and learning a lot of great information about how to be more prepared and how to be more ready-minded and how to be more self-reliant. And please go to our website at preppertalkradio.com and sign up for our email list. We've got a ton of resources that we're building that website to be a place where you can go and get some great resources. So really excited to have today's podcast. We're going to be speaking specifically about woke culture. We talked a little bit in our last podcast about the difference between being awake and woke. And we're going to continue that a little bit this time. Our special guest today is a lady that I met when I first moved here to Utah. And she is a valiant fighter for freedom and liberty. And I'm just going to read really quickly her bio. We met as I was trying to figure out what I can do to get involved and be more involved politically and helping to fight the fight for freedom and liberty. And she and I met at one of these events, I think, I think it was in a Facebook group, another Facebook group, and we decided to get together. And she has a fantastic story that we're going to turn the time over to hear from her. But I wanted to just read a quick bio on her. So it says, Miss Bartholomew, that's her name, Carrie Bartholomew, is a mother and reluctant activist representing multiple parent groups, including Blexit Utah, Fair for All, and Utah Parents United. She also speaks out regularly on her podcast, Martin's Daughter. As a former foster child, she aged out of care and does not subscribe to the victim narrative. Carrie finds herself in the center of this cultural battle. She works tirelessly to defend the virtues of meritocracy and resilience. She is an advocate for all children and believes that the best solutions come when ideas are brought to the table with both reason and compassion. And I absolutely agree. Carrie, welcome to Prepper Talk Radio. We're so glad to have you, and we're grateful for your fight and what you're doing to further the cause of liberty.
Thanks for having me.
So share with me a little bit about, go ahead, what you got started.
I was just going to jump in real quick. So I didn't know this, that you were a foster child until just now.
Yeah.
Having been through that, was that out in California that you were in the foster system, or?
No, I'm from Washington State. When I was 8 years old, I put myself into foster care. So you can imagine how bad it had to be to put yourself into foster care. I just one day said, I'm done. And I walked to the police station and I said, I'm done. Put me in foster care.
Wow.
So.
Okay, everyone who's listening in, now you understand immediately that Carrie's a different breed of person, meaning she takes action. She's not going to sit around. Mm-hmm. Everything I've learned about you before we even got on here was quite impressive. Yeah, reluctant activist. I think that rings true for a lot of us, but I think you're more active than most.
My passion in life is to make things lovely. So if I can make things beautiful and wonderful for anybody, that's what I like to do. I find that we're running out of options on how to do that right now. Mm-hmm. And so, people will say, this is the hill I'll die on. This is the hill I will literally die on. I am not going to go down this culture of nihilism, this culture of let's blow it all up. Let's take away everything that we've worked for, especially when you're somebody like me who comes from absolutely nothing and has this simple, modest, middle-class life. Mm-hmm. You don't get to take that from me, and you don't get to take the hope from my child or the children that I work with. I work at a school. You don't get to take those things just because you're an angry human being. Mm-hmm. So we have to fight.
Or you're in a position of perceived power. A lot of people get into a position of perceived power and they just want to run with it, and it's not good.
No, and their power is not really true because, ultimately their power is just not the truth. And when we're honest, that's when we have real power.
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to the statement, perception is not necessarily reality. And, for a lot of preppers, that's our audience, right? We're preppers, we're patriots. Our mission here with Prepper Talk Radio is to help people be more ready-minded, meaning that they're following God, they're focusing on their family, and then they're working on their country as well, their community after that. And the only people that can fix it are us.
Right.
We can't assign that work to someone else. Same thing for our lives. A lot of preppers are like, can't wait for the apocalypse to happen so then we can get a reset. And I'm like, it's not going to be the reset you want.
No.
We have to create the reset we want. And that's in degrees and days and efforts and everything we're doing right now to make it better. That's why we tell people get a pantry. That's why we tell people get some water, get some first aid, start simply, right? But at the same time, we need to be taking action in our communities to protect this way of life, to protect morals and values, and not just ours, but the values of our neighbors, the values of community, the things that built our country are the things that were the foundational things should be for all of us.
Well, ultimately, we need to be, ultimately, we need to be sovereign, right? We need to be able to take care of ourselves in the way that we see best fit. And what's happening, it's crazy to me that you said that preppers are saying, I can't wait for the next great reset. I mean, you can get online and see exactly what those people want, especially for our kids. That has been a really devastating thing to me in the last week. I watched one of the heads of the WEF talking, and he said, what is the solution for our children who will be disillusioned and without purpose? And he said, well, at this point, what I see are the drugs and the video games. And having a young son, who will be a man in a certain amount of years. No. And also having the kids in my classroom, we just went around the class and read the Berenstain Bear book about like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And all these kids are saying what they want to be. And I'm thinking, wow, in 2030, they want us basically in boxes. And they want us both in that figurative box of, do you check off the right box? And also in boxes in terms of, we will own nothing and be happy, right? So that's just one of those places where you cannot not fight. You cannot not stand. I mean, and one of the other thing that I found extremely horrifying was the same man was talking to Bill Gates. You can watch the video of it, but the same man was talking to Bill Gates, and he said, God is dead, and he has been for decades. It's just taken us a while to hide the body. So you listen to that and you think, and these are the people who want to bring in our social and emotional learning into our schools. All of the equity-based stuff, it all comes from Gates, Zuckerberg, Chan, and the like, right? And they're all the same people who sit in those rooms, nodding their heads and going, oh, such wonderful ideas.
Well, it's interesting because it used to be the focus of school was to learn your math, your science, and your language skills, right? Critical thinking. When I went through grade school, we didn't do critical thinking. It was all rote memorization. Every test was a CTBS, California standardized testing, whatever. Everything was like geared towards standardized testing. Nothing was geared towards problem solving. Nothing was geared towards experiential learning. And when you take away those things and take away the focus on, understanding morals, understanding values, understanding how to do things. When they took shop out of school, I was like, what? When they took like home ec out of school, I was like, what? Like, those are the only places you learned how to actually do something other than memorize.
Well, I think that's go ahead.
I was just gonna say, now they're, as you say, they're even taking memorization out now, and they're saying facts don't matter, it's only feelings. Well, feelings again goes back to perspective.
We're turning our kids into narcissists, and once you're a narcissist, you can't be united because the whole world revolves around you. One of the things that Davis County locally is talking about, they're saying we want to center on the minority. And I'm like, well, but when you center on the minority, mind you, I am a minority, but when you center on the minority, then you exclude the majority. And you think that that's going to build any kind of unity? They don't want unity between people. I find that when I'm walking around locally, and we moved to a small town, just hoping to, live our life in peace, really. And I do find that, like, when I go up and talk to people, they have kind of a standoffish, feeling until like I overly smile and I'm overly just like happy and welcoming and whatever. And then they're like, oh my gosh, you're a breath of fresh air. That there's something wrong with the fact that people are so afraid already. We're only 2 years into this mess, and people are already so afraid of minorities, and they're being trained it in schools. They've got teacher trainings where they're teaching about microaggressions, and now they're bringing them into our schools. Microaggressions. So one example is if somebody were to compliment me for my hair, that would be a microaggression. You can't compliment a minority. Why?
Wow.
I like to be complimented just like any other woman, you know? I'm
Yeah.
like, why would we not want that? But to have our kids, and I'm sitting there thinking about the children in my classroom who put one arm through one side of the sweater and another arm through the other side of the sweater. And they're like, oh, we're twins, and one's Asian and one's white. And they don't think about these things.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
So, but the tricky part about what you were talking about with the education is that our teachers are being taught whether or not they actually read his book by Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. They're being taught his method of learning. And his method of learning takes away the banking system. Now, again, I work in a school. I believe that banking system is super important for those first years, those formative years. Kids aren't old enough to critically think. That's why anything that a cool teacher tells them, they believe, right? And so we need that banking method of 1776, this happened, like what, these are the facts, this is what happened. Could we dig deeper and have more in-depth looks at the facts? I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm actually not opposed to the whole history conversation. But then do we bring in the 1619 garbage? Absolutely not. Like we do not bring in what I call critical resentment theory, CRT. We don't bring that in. And that's what they want to change our banking method to only about their emotions, in fact, only about what makes them angry. So in what ways are you oppressed? And they want to start that at the youngest children. Oh, well, you don't feel like a boy because you don't like to play soccer. Oh, well, maybe you're transgender. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah.
and that's where we're at right now.
I would have definitely been categorized when I was growing up. I had long hair and I was in drama, and I wore the makeup for the plays, and sometimes I would keep the makeup on, and maybe I shouldn't reveal too much here, but I'd go to I actually went to
picture show.
went to the restaurant after the play and pretended that I was the opposite, just to see people's reactions.
Right.
And it was kind of fun to do that. But I told my kids all the time, I said, look, if I grew up in your day to this today, in our day, the day we're in, I would probably have way more labels and have a lot more of a struggle in certain areas. And I'm so grateful that I didn't. And I want you to know that it's okay for boys to play with girls and boys to play with Barbies and girls to play soccer and girls to play with trucks. And it's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means you're exploring, you're learning, you're experimenting, you're being a human. You're looking at all the different options that are in front of you, and you're trying to figure things out. There's just so much,
You're experiencing life.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're not experiencing life, you're not learning. Right. You're being indoctrinated sitting in a classroom nowadays. In real life, when you turn off the screens, you turn off the indoctrination, you go through experiences. Like, for example, today I was going to go to work and do all this other stuff, but I had a window to get some tile work done in my house. And I knew from experience it was going to take longer than I expected because it was all intricate cut issues. But I ran into some new scenarios and problems that I wasn't prepared for, and it took longer. And in other ways, it was shorter. But now I know better how to adjust that time. But that's how we learn. Like, first you learn the basics. First you learn how things work. Then you learn how you can adapt things. Then you can learn how you can overcome problems and challenges. Like Paris was dealing with makeup and cast calls and all the challenges of high school drama class. My high school drama was I was in sports and I was chubby. Hey, look, some things haven't changed, right? But I had a buzz cut from the time I think I was like 8 until I think 14. And it was just, and then most of the time I wore camo pants, like either blue jeans or camo. And I just I loved G.I. Joe growing up. But I was always out building stuff. I was always out exploring. I was always out in nature. And when things got stressful at school, I would ditch